debt talks dominating the headlines like they have been, it seems like, for months right now. So what have we done? We've convened a panel of experts to talk about that for a political roundtable and to underscore the importance of timely agreement. Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner spoke about the looming debt crisis on CBS's Face the Nation.
If they don't act, then we face catastrophic damage to the American economy. And the leadership, to their credit, and I mean Republicans and Democrats, fully understand it. And they have been very clear to the president and to me, including last Thursday, that they are not going to take that risk. It's tough. It's tough on him. It's going to be tough on all the leaders up there. But we have no option except to come together. And the question is, again, not whether we're going to have an agreement. We're going to have an agreement. The question is are we going to have an agreement that's going to be good for the economy?
Not going to take that risk, but they will draw it out to the last possible second, it seems. Joining us for our roundtable discussion, Nicolle Wallace, former White House communications director for George W. Bush. She's also the author of 18 Acres, a fictional narrative about the first female president. Also with us is Elleithee, a former spokesman for Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign, currently a senior advisor to former Virginia Senator Tim Kaine, and CBS News political correspondent Jan Crawford. Good morning to the three of you. Good to have all of you with us here this morning. We hear Tim Geithner, and he talks about this being political theater and really kind of dragging this out, but something will get done. But I just would pose the question to all three of you, because the people at home want to know, is this going to get done? Is this going to get done? Mo, I'll start with you.
Oh, I sure hope so. And look, it seems like there's a real possibility that something is going to get done. I think we had a setback over the weekend when the speaker said that he was going to pull out of the big picture negotiations and big picture deal. And I think that's a mistake for him, both in terms of the economy and politically. But it seems like there is an interest on both sides to get something done. Let's hope they can.
Nicolle, was that a mistake on the part of John Boehner? Because it did seem like things were going in such a positive route for some sort of negotiation here on both sides.
Yeah, look, from the outside, we all hold out hope that our leaders, or this is why I write fiction, we hold out hope that they're going to step into the arena and do these big dramatic things. But I think the reality, a policy reality and a political reality for Republicans, is that it is always a loser to stand behind tax increases.
We keep hearing the word hope. Hope seems to be fading here. We're getting closer and closer to August 2nd. And when you hear this, Tim Geithner coming out and saying this could be catastrophic for this U.S. economy. So the last thing people want to hear, again, is another double-dip recession and seeing those 401ks evaporate. When do, I guess, the two have to combine and say, okay, entitlements, we have to take a little tax cut, tax increases, there may have to be a little. At some point, they've got to get to that point, Jan. Time's running out.
Well, I mean, I think the Republicans, like Nicolle was saying, have been very clear, no, we're not going to have tax increases. And obviously, I agree with you, Mike, there will be a deal. This is Washington. They're going to push it to the very last minute, but there will be a deal. What that deal looks like, I think no one knows right now. It's too soon to say. It's really, though, I think what we need to think about, a fundamental disagreement about the direction of our government. Republicans say no tax increases, let's cut spending. Democrats say we're going to have to raise taxes. And at the end of the day, we may not know who is the winner in this deal until next November, because it's the voters who are going to get to decide who comes out of this looking the strongest. And it's really going to be a ratification on what they want their government to look like.
As Jan said, I mean, Republicans are open to, what we have now is sort of a failure to communicate. Republicans are open to structural tax reform. Tom Coburn, one of the most conservative members of the U.S. Senate, John McCain, they are all open to fundamental tax reform where we close those loopholes, which allows us to increase some tax revenues, but then we also have to lower the corporate and individual tax rates. And I think that's where some things got lost in translation, that when Republicans heard closing loopholes, they believe that it must be accompanied by a lowering of those tax rates. I think Democrats heard, okay, we'll close the loopholes, raise the revenues, and I'll give you some of, and we'll do some entitlement reform.
It's amazing how much of it is politicking and rhetoric, to be honest, and the way that things are labeled by each party, because sometimes you can be talking about the same thing, but one says we're closing a loophole and the other says, oh, but you're raising taxes.
The president's plan did have fundamental, there were fundamental differences in that $4 trillion plan that Republicans, and I think John Boehner really had his pulse on the finger, not only of the other Republicans in his conference, but the other presidential candidates in the Republican Party. They were not going to have those kind of tax increases that the president had
I'm not sure how much of that was John Boehner having his finger on the pulse. John Boehner actually seemed to be a reasonable, practical guy, ready to sit down and negotiate and get some of these loopholes closed, but got pulled back by his own caucus. When Eric Cantor and the rest of the Republican caucus said, no way, I think it was
even
less
spoke favorably with the Biden plan. He was,
that's right, and I think he was more forced into that than really reflecting the voice of his caucus.
Where does this, we got to switch, we have to shift a little bit, too, because this is all obviously setting us up for 2012. So, Mo, I want to let you get a word in on this one as we start. How much is this going to reflect on how this turns out for the president, on where things go for the Democratic Party in 2012?
Well, I mean, I think Democrats want to see the president doing what he's doing. And I think, frankly, most Americans do. That the president is actually working hard to bring both sides to the table to get a deal done that will spread the sacrifice and the responsibility across all parties. I think that's what people want right now. I don't think people agree with the Republican caucus that says no revenue, that we're not going to deal with these loopholes. That's not what they want. So if the president keeps fighting for that, I think he ends up being okay in 2012. I think the Republicans are setting themselves up for a pretty hard fall if they don't change their tone a little bit.
And as far as tone, and now with job numbers, I mean, the mood again very dark in Washington. 2 straight months of anemic job numbers and unemployment rate, which is at now 9.2%. We know the history. At 9.2%, it's tough to get reelected right there. Nicolle, Republicans right now saying, you know what, this is our chance to pounce.
Yeah, and look, where Republicans won over the independents who delivered President Obama his victory in 2008 was on the issue of the national debt, was on the issue of the size and the role of the federal government. So where Republicans have an opportunity to stand for a smaller government, they also have an opportunity to hang on to the independent voters who, sure, they want to see their government work. Everyone wants to see their government work. But Republicans and increasingly independent voters are deeply skeptical of these demands from our leaders in Washington that we must continue to grow the size of the federal government.
Isn't one of the challenges, though, we should say for the Republican Party, not just the field is so large at this point, granted we're a ways out, but also that the candidate who could probably do the best for the party in the primary is not necessarily the candidate who would do the best for the Republican Party when it comes to the general election. 2 very different candidates there.
Yeah, look, I mean, people say that about both sides. They said that about the Democratic field. People thought Hillary Clinton would have made a better general election candidate, and Barack Obama made a pretty good general election candidate as someone who worked on the campaign against him. So people say that every 4 years, and it usually works out for the side that wins.
Jan, I want to get a quick question about 2012 in here. Cover of Newsweek, Sarah Palin, who again still has not really kind of put her foot in the ring just yet, says I can win. That's kind of the takeaway from this Newsweek article. Are people sitting on the sidelines still waiting for this woman to
Oh, there is no question. I was out in Iowa with her when the movie about her life and leadership premiered. Had a chance to talk with her and watch her kind of interact with voters. And I think she's going to run. I think people around her are supporting it. She said in that article that her family is on board with this. She's been giving us these hints over and over and over again that she is going to get in the race. And so, I mean, it could just be a matter of time. The one thing I would look for, though, is that she has said a couple different times on the trail that she's kind of weighing her options to see what someone else is going to do. Yeah. Texas Governor Rick Perry. So she's actually looking to see what Rick Perry is going to do, too. So I think we'll have to wait and see. He's also possibly in.
So much to talk about. We could keep going, but sadly,
we're getting the wrap.
Time tells us we got to go. Jan Crawford, thanks so much. Mel, thank you very much. Nicolle, great to see the 3 of you. We do appreciate it.